was there. From the Muslim perspective, this is what Allah tells us in Surah Al-A'raf, the 7th chapter of the Quran, verse 172, where it states there that Allah created all of human beings. All human beings at the time of the creation of Adam, took from Adam all of his descendants, and made them bear witness that he was their Lord. And all human beings bore witness. Then they remained in that state, in the barzakh, until the time for their birth on earth. The spirit was then put into human beings. They grew up, and then the environment around them would affect them. As the Prophet ﷺ had said, كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ عَلَى الْفِطْرَةِ. Every newborn is born in a natural state of belief in God. This is the natural way. But it is the family, the environment, etc. around him or her that turns them into a Christian, a Jew, a Zoroastrian, or whatever. Going back to our other group of questions, if everything has a creator, who created God? We looked at that already in the answer given by Aristotle. Infinite regression, going back without having a creator, is not possible. There has to be a creator who was himself uncreated. The second question, if God can do anything, why can't he have a son? That one can be included with the other question. If God is all powerful, can he create a stone which is too heavy for him to lift? These questions and ones like them, we put under the general heading of the ludicrous. The ludicrous questions. Ludicrous meaning that they are illogical and they are unreasonable questions from two perspectives. Or we could say really from one perspective, explain it in two different ways. Basically, to ask, can God do anything which will make him no longer God? That is a ludicrous question. To ask, can God do anything which will make him, in doing it, make him no longer God? That is illogical and unreasonable. So when we define God as one without beginning, to then ask, can God be born? That is illogical. If we define God as one without end, then to ask, can God die? That is illogical. So the issue of God doing ungodly things is not an issue of discussion. It is outside the realm of reasonable and logical discussion. So both of those questions, we say, are asking whether God will do ungodly things. For God to have a son, one of his descriptions is that he is one and only. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one God. There's only one God. So to say, can God have a son, meaning, if he had a son, what is that son going to be? Another God. Maybe a little God. When we have sons, they're little humans. Cows have calves. Cats have kittens. Little versions. So when God has a son, we have a little version of God? Or is it a full-blown version like himself? Or if it's a full-blown version, we have clearly two gods. So for God to have a son is to no longer be true God, who is only one. So it is a nonsensical question. It is a nonsensical question. The other question, which is one which usually messes up people, where they're not aware of how God works. When something happens in their lives which they cannot find an explanation for, then their only conclusion is there can't be a God. So many times you talk to atheists, you ask, how did you get here? You know, your parents were both practicing Christians or Muslims or whatever, and you are now an atheist. How did you get there? The person will tell you something like, I had this aunt who was a wonderful woman. She was even nicer than my own parents. And one day, when she was taking me to the store, a big car came and just ran over her and killed her. Why? She was a good person. So many bad people around, why didn't it hit them? Why her? Of course, he doesn't have, or she doesn't have an answer. No way to explain why her and not anybody else. So the only conclusion, not understanding how God operates, is to say there couldn't be a God. And this one is similar to the concept we can say is that if God is all good and able to do all things, where did evil come from? It's the same question. Where did evil come from? Reality is that everything which takes place in the world is a part of God's creation. It is by God's permission. Nothing takes place without His permission for it to take place. What we do know is that from our personal experience, there are many things which we might look at as being bad at one point in time, and later on look at it as being good at another point in time. It appeared bad to us, but later on it turned out to be something really good. We can see it on the simple level of our children. When you have to take your child to the dentist first time, and you gear him up or her up to go see the dentist, tell him how the dentist is a nice man. He's going to do nice things for you. And even when you come into the dental office, maybe the dentist will give the child a lollipop or something. But once the kid is in the chair and business begins, there is another situation happening here. Needles are going in the gum and the drill is going in, bzzz, and the kid is screaming. Now after you take that kid home, you cannot convince the kid that the dentist was a good man. You can't convince him. Or if you want to take him back to the dentist again, oh boy, you have to trick them. You don't tell them I'm taking you to the dentist, otherwise they go in the room and they're closing the door and they're not coming out. No way. Not going back to that man again. He's a bad man. That's how the child perceives it. It can only see the harm, the pain, the suffering that it had. It can't see as we do when we look ahead. We say, no, this pain is to prevent a greater pain. We can't see that. Those children can't see it. And that is what is demonstrated in the story of Al-Khidr. Al-Khidr and Prophet Moses in the Quran, in Surah Al-Kahf, where Al-Khidr does certain acts which Prophet Moses could not understand the long-term, or to know the long-term consequences, until Al-Khidr explained it to him. He could only see Al-Khidr taking the axe and breaking a hole in the boat after these people had so kindly taken them across the river, and see him grab an innocent child and take off its head for no apparent reason, until Al-Khidr explained to him that the boat was saved by the hole put in it, because there was a ruler coming down, a tyrant king coming down the river, and he was grabbing everybody's boat. So when he came to the boat with the hole in it, he left it. No need for that one. So the man's boat was saved by the hole that was put in it. And the boy whose life was taken, parents were righteous. That child was going to grow up and become such a fitna, such a trial for the parents, that it would drive them into a state of disbelief. So to protect the parents from the evil of the child, its life was taken. And Allah replaced that child with another, a girl, and that girl treated the parents well. And that's about the realities of life. We say it as every cloud has a silver lining. This is reality, we see it. Now, of course, what happens with people is they say, okay, we can see that, but where is the good in the tsunami? The tsunami took how many thousands of lives? Where is the good in that one? Tell us the good. The fact that I cannot explain to you where the good is, does it mean there is no good? All it says is I don't know where. But reality is that how God operates is that He does not permit anything to happen except that there is some good in it. But it doesn't mean that the evil that is done by those who do it, if it's done by people as opposed to quote-unquote nature, it doesn't mean that those people are excused, saying, oh, they're only doing God's will. Those who are murdering people, stealing. No, we don't say they're doing God's will. Yeah, yes, what they've done is in accordance with the will of God, meaning God has permitted them to do it, but that's not what God wants them to do, because they will be punished for what they do. So that's how God works. In our day-to-day life, we easily recognize the need for instructions. The need for instructions is well known. If a businessman set up a business, hired people to work in his business, brought them to the company, and then didn't tell them what they're supposed to do in the company, what do you think is going to happen? The company is going to run well and be successful? And no. He has to tell them what to do. He had a reason for which he hired them. It has to be out and explained to them. One who does something like that, where he doesn't inform people, we'd say is unwise. Children going to school, if they're not informed as to what they're going to school for, what they're supposed to do in school, do you think they're just going to march into school and march into the classrooms and sit down and wait for the teacher? No, they're going to go to the playground, swing on the swings, slide on the slides, have a good time. They're not going to go in the classrooms. You must tell them. So we recognize very easily that for anything to function properly, it must be in accordance with plans which are explained to those involved. Information has to be given. Otherwise,